Hello everyone, I'm Nadia Purnama. I will talk about my research presentation regarding food addiction and eating disorder. This presentation will take approximately about 10 minutes. I include 5 slides for this presentation. And yeah, let's get started. I hope you guys enjoy. The first slide is about the meaning of the binge eating disorder. According to Mars, eating disorder is a term that has been used for a situation when a person is eating unusually large quantities of food in a short amount of time. It is also paired with having anxiety, guilt, or even an overwhelming feeling of losing control. Although food addiction is not officially recognized as a medical condition, shares many similarities with binge eating, such as compulsive overeating and strong cravings for unhealthy foods. These behaviors are linked to brain activity, particularly the release of dopamine, which makes people feel good when eating high-calorie foods. Over time, this can lead to a cycle of overeating, guilt, and shame. Understanding the relationship between food addiction and binge eating disorder is crucial in addressing this condition. While they are not always officially diagnosed in the same way, both involve unhealthy eating patterns that can lead to serious physical and mental health problems. Promoting healthier relationship with food and providing early diagnosis and support are important steps toward helping people manage these disorders. And I will be answering a few questions that are required. What is the problem in your research that you are trying to solve? As what I mentioned, it's about food addiction and eating disorder. The main problem in this research is that people don't fully understand the difference between binge eating disorder, or BED, and food addiction. These two conditions are often confused, even though they have different causes and treatments. This confusion makes it harder for people to get the right diagnosis and help, which is important for their recovery. Both binge eating and food addiction can cause serious health problems like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. They can also affect mental health, leading to feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, and depression. Many people who struggle with these conditions get stuck in a cycle of overeating and feeling bad about themselves, which makes it even harder to stop. Another issue is that while binge eating disorder is recognized as a real condition in DSM-5, a guide used by doctors to diagnose mental health problems, food addiction is not officially recognized. Because of this, food addiction doesn't get as much as attention for research as it should, even though it shares many similarities with other forms of addiction. Early diagnosis and intervention are also a big concern. Many people don't realize they have a problem until it has caused a serious health issues. Raising awareness about these conditions and how they're different can help people get the support they need sooner. And finally, the modern environment our society nowadays makes this problem worse. There's easy access to unhealthy, processed foods that are high in sugar, fat, and salt, and stress from daily life can lead also to overeating. Social and environment factors play a big role in how these conditions develop and need to be addressed for a better health. And for my research, it aims to explore the similarities and differences between binge eating disorder and food addiction. By doing so, I hope it will raise awareness, improve early diagnosis, and support better treatments for people dealing with these challenges. And the second question, what perspective did you hold at the beginning of your research? And how did this perspective change throughout the research process? Well, at the beginning of the research, I believed that eating disorder like binge eating and condition like food addiction were entirely separate and unrelated issues. I also thought that food addiction was widely recognized as a legitimate medical condition. Well, my initial perspective was that binge eating was purely a behavioral problem, while food addiction seemed more like a lifestyle issue stemming from poor self control. And through the research process, my perspective changed entirely. I came to understand that binge eating and food addiction share many similarities, especially in how they affect the brain and involve compulsive behaviors driven by dopamine responses. I also learned that food addiction is not officially recognized as a medical condition, once again, even though it has many similarities. And I realized how deeply these issues are influenced by psychological, social, and biological factors, as it mentioned in the book by Stephen Guyanet, that goes over the relation between social, psychological, and biological factors that are shared by food addiction and binge eating. Well, mainly both disorders are connected with the dopamine in the brain that can cause pleasure and reward, creates too much, like resulting in compulsive eating, especially for very appetizing and high calorie foods. Also, another question: what is the thesis that you initially put forward? Did it change or develop in a different direction? Oh, so for the original thesis was about looking at how binge eating disorder and food addiction are similar and different. I focus on understanding both conditions on better to improve how they are diagnosed and treated. The main idea was to show that while they share behaviors like compulsive eating, they are not exactly the same and need to be treated differently. As I work on the research, the thesis changed a little. It started to focus more on how things like easy access to unhealthy foods and stigma around overeating make the sense problem worse. I also found that the brain's reward system, especially dopamine, plays a big role, like I said again, in both binge eating and food addiction, which made me think that it's being closer to addiction than I first thought. This change helped me actually to expand the argument. Instead of just comparing the two conditions, I also look at how society and the environment make them harder to deal with. I also started to see how important it is to raise awareness and step in early to help people, especially since these problems are getting more common in today's stressful world. And for the second slide, I include some statistics to show how serious binge eating disorder and food addiction are. It is say there I found that about 28.8 million of Americans that have an eating disorder and binge eating disorder. It's the most common one, affecting 9% of people in the US. This has really stood out to me because it shows how big of a problem it is. And another surprising fact I learned is that binge eating is more common than both bulimia and anorexia combined. Around 3.5% of women and 2% of men will have binge eating at some point in their lives. Moving on to the next slide, it's about the cause and effects. The cause and effects of binge eating disorder and food addiction are really connected and show how complicated this problem are. When I look into it, I found out both disorder can be caused by same reasons, including stress, emotions, and even how the brain works. And for example, one big cause is stress or trauma. People often use food to cope when they're feeling sad, anxious, or overwhelmed. Eating comfort food like sweets or chips might make someone feel better for a little while, but it can turn into a habit that is hard to stop. And one big cause of binge eating and food addiction is how the brain reacts to certain foods, especially those that are high in sugar, fat, or salt. And when we eat these types of food, our brains releases a chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is what makes us feel happy and rewarded, so eating these foods give us like a quick high. The problem is that can create another cycle. Once someone experiences that dopamine boost, they start craving those foods more and more to feel the same pleasure again. Over time, this craving can turn into compulsive overeating. People might eat even when they are not hungry, just to feel the dopamine high again. This pattern can lead to losing control over food choices and can make it really hard again to stop, even when the person knows it's unhealthy. This cause shows how food addiction isn't just about willpower, it's tied to how our brain works. The way processed foods are designed to be so enjoyable makes it easy to get stuck in this cycle of craving and overeating. Understanding this can help explain why someone struggles so much with binge eating disorder. Finally, we are on the last slide. It is about example and the effects of binge eating disorder. And in the essay, I mentioned some examples of food addiction, but here it is cravings for highly processed foods, high calorie like sugar, like fat and salty snacks, and fast food are very common symptoms of food addiction. And the fact that binge eating disorder was officially known by the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, or DSM-5, in 2013. It is defined by eating unusually large quantities of food in a short amount of time. It is also often paired with having anxiety, guilt, or even an overwhelming feeling of losing control. Well, food addiction is similar because involves cravings for unhealthy foods, especially those that are high in sugar, fat, and salt, like chocolate or fast food. Even if the person is already full, they might still feel like they cannot stop eating because the brain releases the dopamine or the feel-good chemical when they eat these foods. So they keep wanting the same feeling, which leads to more overeating, and this cycle keeps continuing. So both food addiction and binge eating are linked to unhealthy relationship with food, and they have strong emotional and physical effects. They can lead to very serious health problem, making it harder to feel good about yourself and your body. And yeah, that is all about my research presentation. I hope you can learn something new about it and you can spare an awareness more about food addiction and binge eating disorder. Thank you for listening.